first week of college felt like the beginning of everything. New city, new campus, new life, a clean break from who I'd been before. I remember standing in the doorway of my dorm room with my suitcase in hand, thinking, this is it. This is where it starts. My roommate was already there. His name was Daniel. He didn't say much when we met, just gave a small nod, a quiet hey, and went back to organizing his desk. He seemed normal, quiet, kept to himself, the kind of person who went to bed early and didn't blast music or bring people over. Honestly, I was relieved. I figured he was just an introvert trying to adjust, same as me. The first week passed without incident. Then the second week started, and things changed. I noticed first that Daniel never showered. At first I told myself I just hadn't noticed different schedules, maybe. But days went by, then more days. His towel stayed folded, his toiletries untouched, and there was this smell. Faint at first, like stale air trapped in a room too long. Then came the nights. I started waking up around 3 in the morning every night without fail. No alarm, no noise, just that sudden feeling that someone was watching me. Daniel would be sitting at his desk, not moving, not studying, not on his phone, just sitting perfectly still, staring straight at the wall in front of him. I'd whisper his name. Daniel. Slowly, too slowly, he'd turn his head toward me, and then he'd smile. That smile never reached his eyes. His mouth would curl upward, but his eyes stayed flat, empty, like there was nothing behind them at all. Every time I saw it, my stomach dropped like I just missed a step going down the stairs. After the third night, I stopped saying his name. I started sleeping with my door locked. I told myself I was being ridiculous. College stress, lack of sleep, new environment. My brain was just filling in the gaps with paranoia. That's what I kept repeating to myself until the night I came back late from the library. It was past midnight, the dorm hallway was quiet, lights humming overhead. I unlocked my door and stepped inside and immediately felt it. The room was wrong. Daniel's bed was perfectly made, no wrinkles, no sheets pulled back. His desk was empty. No books, no laptop, no lamp. The closet was bare, no clothes, no shoes. It looked like no one had ever lived there. At first I thought maybe he transferred or dropped out. Suddenly it happens. People realize college isn't for them all the time. I won't lie, I felt relieved. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. 2 days later, there was a knock on my door, campus police. They asked me if they could come in and sat down across from me with notebooks open. One of them asked a simple question. How well did you know your roommate, Daniel? I told them the truth, not well at all. Quiet guy, kept to himself, nothing notable. They exchanged a look, the kind that makes your chest tighten before anyone says another word. Then one of them told me something I still don't fully understand. Daniel had been reported missing by his family 3 weeks before the semester even started. He never enrolled. His student ID was never activated. His name was never on my room assignment. There was no record of him ever living in that dorm. I laughed at first. I thought it had to be a mistake, a clerical error, a mix-up in the system. I told him someone was sleeping 6 feet away from me every night for 2 weeks. They didn't laugh. They asked me to describe him, his face, his voice, his habits when I mentioned the nights. Him sitting at the desk, staring at the wall. The officers went quiet. Before they left, one of them asked me one last question. Are you sure he was always there when you fell asleep? I don't sleep with my door unlocked anymore. I transferred schools the next semester. And sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still feel that same sensation. That someone is sitting just out of sight, staring at the wall, waiting for me to notice. Our university library had a basement the students weren't supposed to use. Officially, it was restricted access, old archives, structural issues, budget cuts, that's what the sign said. Unofficially, it was just Forgotten. Dust-coated shelves, flickering fluorescent lights, air that felt thick in your lungs. It smelled like mold, paper rot, and something underneath that I could never quite name, something metallic, sour, wrong. During finals week of junior year, every table upstairs was taken. People were studying on the floor, against walls, even in stairwells, so my study group decided to go somewhere no one else would. There were 4 of us, me, Priya, Josh, and Kara. A girl I'd only met twice before that night. She barely spoke, but she insisted she knew a quiet place. She led us downstairs. The basement was colder than the rest of the building, not air-conditioned cold, just cold like the temperature dropped for no reason. We sat up at an old wooden table between towering shelves of archived newspapers. The lights above us buzzed constantly like they were struggling to stay alive. For about an hour, we actually studied. Then Kara wandered off. She said she was looking for a bathroom. There wasn't one down there. A few minutes later, she called out softly, "Guys, you should see this." Her voice sounded different, not excited, not scared, just distant. We followed her to the very back of the archive room, past shelves that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. That's when we saw it. A small wooden door, barely taller than Josh's shoulder. It didn't match the rest of the basement. The wood looked older, darker, like it belonged to a different building entirely. And someone had pushed a bookshelf in front of it, not neatly, not professionally, just enough to hide it. The air back there was heavier, harder to breathe. Priya immediately said we shouldn't. Josh, of course, ignored her. He grinned, grabbed the edge of the shelf, and with way too much effort dragged it aside. The scraping sound against the concrete floor echoed too loudly in that tight space. Behind it was the door. No lock, just a simple metal latch. He opened it. The smell that came out hit us all at once. It wasn't rot. It wasn't decay. It was the smell of something sealed away for a very long time and suddenly exposed like trapped air escaping a tomb. Inside was a room no bigger than a closet, stone walls, not concrete, not brick, stone, and on the floor was a perfect circle drawn in black chalk. The lines were precise, thick, intentional. The circle was filled with symbols none of us recognized, not Latin, not anything from a frat prank or art project. They curved and intersected in ways that made your eyes struggle to follow them. In the very center of the circle was a tape recorder. Old tasted, yellowed with age, no dust on it. Priya whispered, "We need to leave." I agreed immediately. Nothing about that room felt abandoned. Josh stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed into the circle, the basement lights above us flickered just once. He laughed it off and picked up the tape recorder. There was already a cassette inside. Without hesitation, he pressed play. At first there was only static, then a voicemail, calm, measured, speaking in a language none of us understood. It wasn't fast, it wasn't frantic, it sounded deliberate, controlled, like someone reading instructions. The air in the room felt tighter with every second. My ears started ringing. I remember feeling like the walls were closer. The voice continued for about 30 seconds, then it stopped. The tape didn't click off. There was a pause, and then a different voice came through. A woman. Soft, clear, and different English. "Please don't let it out." The tape went silent, no static, no click, just silence. No one laughed, no one said it was a joke. Because the moment that sentence ended, the temperature in that little stone room dropped so fast I could see my breath. Josh dropped the recorder. It didn't break, it just kept staring at us from the center of the circle. We didn't run. We backed out slowly. Josh was the last one to step out of the room, and I swear on everything as he crossed back over the chalk line, one of the symbols smeared like something had brushed against it from the inside. We shoved the tape recorder back exactly where it was. We closed the door, we pushed the shelf back in front of it, and we never spoke about it again. Not that night, not ever. 6 months later, Josh started having episodes. Blackouts. Sleepwalk. We'd lake up outside his apartment on a keep with someone once in a lot day basement stairwell. The city's having dreams about a room made is stolen by some dead steam. We just outside a shulker watch. We drop out the firstly needed pre-trends, fits calls and so we still dance from text, carrying a disappearing social media, entirely no graduation for there's no real pics. Nothing. Sometimes I wonder if it was coincidence, stress, mental health, finals week, paranoia. But here's what I can't explain. About a year after that night, I was studying late again, different building, different campus. I opened my notebook and on the bottom corner of the page in smudged black graphite I don't remember drawing was a curved symbol. One I recognized instantly from inside the circle. I don't know what was in that room. I don't know what the voice meant. I don't know what we almost let out. I just know this. Some doors aren't locked to keep people out. They're locked to keep something in. And sometimes, even unlocked doors are sealed for a reason. Harlan taught intro to psychology my freshman year. From the first lecture, everyone noticed him. He was brilliant, sharp, intense in a way that made you sit up straighter without realizing why. When he spoke, he didn't pace or gesture much. He just stood there, hands folded, eyes scanning the room, and when his gaze landed on you, it felt like he was speaking directly into your head. Students admired him. They were also terrified of him. About 3 weeks into the semester, he started doing something strange at the beginning of each class. Before opening his slides or touching the podium, Dr. Harlan would pause. He'd slowly look around the lecture hall as if counting us. Then he'd choose a student. Not volunteers, not people he'd spoken to before, just random. He'd say their name. And then he'd tell them about their week. Not general observations, not personality trait specifics. One morning he looked at a girl in the front row and said, "You locked yourself in the third-floor bathroom on Tuesday and cried for 7 minutes. You wiped your face before leaving so no one would ask questions." She went pale. Another day he pointed to a guy in the back and said, "You picked up your phone twice last night to call your father. You hung up both times before it rang." The class laughed. Nervously, uncomfortably. We told ourselves it was a psychology trick, body language, social media stalking, some elaborate experiment about perception and suggestion. We waited for him to explain it. He never did. Each lecture started the same way: silence, eye contact, a name. No one ever volunteered information, no one confirmed or denied what he said, but no one ever claimed he was wrong. Then one Monday morning, his eyes stopped on me. The room felt suddenly very quiet. He tilted his head slightly and said, "You didn't sleep Saturday night." My stomach tightened. You kept hearing something outside your window, a light tap, and you told yourself it was a bird. The room spun, because that had happened. I lived on the third floor of my dorm, no trees close enough to brush the window. I'd been awake until nearly 4 in the morning, staring at the glass, listening to a slow, irregular tap, and that stopped whenever I sat up. I'd never told anyone. After class, I stayed behind. I told myself I just wanted reassurance, a rational explanation. When I asked him how he knew Dr. Harlan's smile, it was the same tight, controlled smile he always wore. But up close it looked strained, like it took effort to hold it in place. "I'll pay attention to my students," he said. That was it. No elaboration. No humor. I reported the incident to the department head that afternoon. They took it seriously, too seriously. A week later, I was called into an office and asked questions that made my skin crawl. Had Dr. Harlan ever asked me personal questions? Had he followed me? Had I noticed him around my dorm? And they told me what they'd found. Dr. Harlan had no verifiable employment history. His degrees existed on paper, but no university could confirm he'd attended or taught there. His references were names without phone numbers. His listed home address led to an empty lot. No house. No apartment. Just weeds and dirt. The following Monday, Dr. Harlan didn't show up for class, neither did the next week or the one after that. University replaced him quietly, no announcement, no explanation. His name disappeared from the website like it had never been there. Students stopped talking about him. I didn't. Because the tapping didn't stop. It came back months later, softer this time, slower, more deliberate. Tap. Pause. Tap. Always at my bedroom window. Always late at night. I stopped checking. I stopped convincing myself it was an animal of the wind because once, just once, I heard something else. A breath. Right on the other side of the glass, patient, waiting. And in that moment I realized something that still keeps me awake. Dr. Harlan didn't predict my week, he didn't analyze it. He described it. Like he'd been there. And whatever was tapping on my window that night, I think it wanted me to look back. Hall had 3 floors. Freshman year, I lived on the 2nd. The 3rd floor was under renovation. That's what the university website said, that's what housing told us, that's what the R repeated whenever anyone asked. Apparently it had been under renovation for years. The elevator skipped it entirely. You could press the button all you wanted, it would go from 2 straight to 4. The stairwell door that led to the 3rd floor was padlocked from the outside, thick chain, heavy lock, no explanation. But every night around 2 a.m. you could hear footsteps above you, slow, deliberate. Not random creaks, not pipes knocking. Footsteps, back and forth, measured, patient. The first week it kept me awake. The second week I asked my RA, "Is the building settling?" He said, "Too quickly, old structures make noise." My friends agreed old buildings are loud, you get used to it, and they were right. You do get used to it. You get used to any sound that doesn't kill you. By October, the footsteps were just part of the background, like distant traffic, like wind. They always started at 2 a.m., they always lasted about an hour, and they always stopped abruptly. In February, a steam pipe burst on our floor. Water flooded half the hallway. They shut off power to several rooms and relocated a handful of us temporarily. Me and 2 other guys were told to pack a bag. They were moving us to the 3rd floor. I laughed when they said it, and I saw the R's face. He didn't laugh. When we reached the stairwell, the padlock was gone. No chain, no sign it had ever been there. He unlocked the door and let us walk up first. The 3rd floor was not under renovation, it was finished, completely. The carpet was clean, the walls freshly painted, the overhead lights hummed softly. It looked newer than the floor I'd just come from. Every room door stood slightly open inside. The rooms were intact, beds made tight, desks cleared, dressers empty. It didn't look abandoned. It looked paused, like someone had staged it and stepped out for a moment. One room made my stomach turn. On the desk was a plate with half a sandwich on it. The bread had hardened and collapsed inward. The meat looked fossilized. A plastic cup beside it had a thick layer of dust inside. It hadn't been touched in years, but no one had thrown it away. The RA walked us down the hall without speaking. He looked uncomfortable, not annoyed, not inconvenienced, uncomfortable. I asked him directly, "Why is this floor really closed?" He didn't answer at first. We reached the room they assigned me, directly above my old one. Of course it was. As he handed me the key, I asked again. He stared at me for a long moment, then he said quietly, "There was an incident a long time ago. The university thinks it's better this way." I pushed, I shouldn't have. "What kind of incident?" His jaw tightened. 3 students lived up here in 1987. He hesitated before continuing. They went to sleep one night. "And?" I asked. "And they woke up different." The hallway suddenly felt colder. Different how? He looked past me down the corridor. They didn't remember who they were, not their names, not their families, not each other. I felt a tightness in my chest, like amnesia. He shook his head slowly, no confusion, no panic, just blank. He swallowed. Doctors said it was psychological trauma, stress, shared delusion, but one of the nurses wrote in a report that it was like whatever was inside them had been cleared out. Cleared out. He lowered his voice. They never got it back. University shut the floor down within a month, officially for renovations, unofficially. He didn't finish. That night at 2 a.m., I was awake. I told myself I just wanted to see if the footsteps would happen while I was on the 3rd floor. At exactly 2:03 a.m. I heard them, but not above me, outside my door. Slow, measured, pacing the hallway, back and forth, back and forth. I stared at the crack under my door, waiting to see a shadow pass. There was no shadow, but the carpet outside compressed slightly. With each step, I could see the fibers shift as if something heavy was walking without casting light. I grabbed my keys and left. I slept in my car that night. And the next, I don't care how insane or chimes at transfer dorms at the end of the semester. With my phone was the mellis cleans landed chronically. No announcement, no statement, no moment. They'd replaced it with a parking. My car paid flight went deep. If you've casted once as to graduate, never in the worst go. I just stumped in scaring the bit stretch of pavement, and I swear I could feel Lord Sheriff. Feel the slow pace something like the car cleat. Back and forth, like it was still walking. Laugh for someone to go to fall over it again. I found it by accident. I was in the university archive, buried in research for my senior thesis. The basement level, no windows, just rows of metal shelving and the constant hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The kind of place where time feels stalled. I was pulling psychology journals from the 1970s when something caught my eye. Wedged between two perfectly uniform bound volumes was something wrong. It wasn't stamped with the university seal. The binding was older, handmade. The cover was plain, dark, with no author name. Just a title written in careful ink. On the persistence of presence after biological cessation, I remember feeling a small flicker of excitement. It sounded obscure, uncatalogued, exactly the kind of strange source you hope to stumble across when you're desperate for something original. I signed it out manually. The librarian barely glanced at it. I took it to one of the wooden tables under the dim archive lights and opened it. It was handwritten. Not notes, not a draft. A full dissertation, hundreds of pages, structured, footnoted, methodical, but unsigned. The subject wasn't theoretical philosophy, it was practical research. The student, whoever they were, claimed to have conducted a 2-year study on consciousness after death. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally, they referred to their subjects only as recently deceased individuals. There were charts, observations, timestamps, environmental variables, building layouts, no mention of where the bodies came from. No mention of permission. I didn't want to know. The early chapters were clinical, detached, almost boring. They described a hypothesis that in certain environments, particularly older academic buildings, residual awareness does not immediately dissipate after biological death. It lingers. Not as a ghost, not as an apparition, as awareness. The student wrote that this awareness appears confined to specific rooms. It does not wander freely. It observes and it learns. The later chapters grew different. Less clinical, less certain. The writer began documenting patterns. They claimed a residual awareness began responding to stimuli, lights flickering at specific questions, objects displaced in consistent ways, cold spots forming in areas where living subjects spent the most time. Then came the final chapter. The handwriting changed there, less steady. The student wrote that the awareness had begun mimicking behavior, learning routines, recognizing faces. It followed people with what they described as focused attention. There was a paragraph I haven't been able to forget. It does not drift aimlessly, it selects, it studies, it appears, especially drawn to those who observe it. I felt uncomfortable reading that part, like the air around the table had thickened. The final entry was dated. No explanation, no conclusion. Just a single paragraph. The last lines read, "It knows I've been watching it. I think it's been watching me longer. I don't think I should have." The sentence ended there, mid-thought, no period, no signature. I sat there for a long time staring at that unfinished line. Then I did what you're supposed to do with strange archive material. I brought it to the librarian. She was older, quiet, the kind of person who moves slowly but deliberately. When I handed her the dissertation, she didn't look confused. She looked tense. She examined the cover for a long time. Then she looked at me and asked very carefully, "Where did you find this?" I told her the exact shelf. She closed the dissertation gently. Then she stood up, carried it toward the back of the archive, past the staff-only door, and disappeared. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. 20. She didn't come back. Eventually, I packed my things and left. The next day, I returned. The librarian wasn't there. No one else working that shift had heard of her. I asked about the dissertation. There was no record of it being signed out. No catalog entry, no misfiled record, nothing. And here's the part that unsettles me the most. When I got home that night, I was certain I had put the dissertation in my bag before approaching the desk. I remember the weight of it, the texture of the binding. But when I emptied my bag under my bed, it wasn't there. I don't remember putting it back. I don't remember her handing it back. I don't remember walking away without it. I have no explanation for where it went. But ever since that day, something has been wrong. It started subtly, the sense of being observed in empty lands. Feeling nabaralım pristine, something that jostled, it was already there waiting. Sometimes I dress myself glaze in the corner at ceiling edges of fractions and dark windows, not because I see something, because I feel something focused and scattered. It was a while in the dissertation I cared for Denix Alexic started to this journey as also what surfed, and I took thinking about that unfinished sentence. It's been watching me longer. Because ever since I read those words in that basement archive, I have not once felt alone, not in my apartment, not in classrooms, not even outside. There's a presence that feels patient, unhurried, something that is absolutely nothing but time. And sometimes when I walk into a room and the air feels just slightly colder than it should, I get the distinct impression that it recognizes me. Like I'm not the first one to read those pages. Just the next one.